Hi, the library that we are going to discuss today is Chrome-like TabSwitcher. The author is Michael Rapp, and here's the link where you can get the entire library. Let me introduce you to the author first. I'll take you to their GitHub page. Here's the author, Michael Rapp. You can see that they have contributed to a lot of libraries, and this is the library that we are going to discuss today. And let us not waste any time and get inside the library. So here's the library. Now, what exactly is this library all about? I think it's very clearly depicted in this, what you're seeing on the screen right now. So this library lets you make apps which can have Chrome-like tab switchers. So as you can see in your app, you can create these tabs. You can go through these different tabs by these scrolls. You can cancel or get new tabs whenever required. There's this certain kind of animation that comes with these tabs whenever there is some kind of change in the overall tab movement. Now, we will be looking inside the code of this implementation and discussing it as we go ahead. Now, here's the working of the library. This library lets you implement Google Chrome-like tabs in your Android app. You can open, close the tabs as required, and this allows you to have a browser-like experience while using the Android app. I think this is the most catchy part, which I would like you to, really understand when we discuss this app. The browser-like experience, if you are able to provide in an Android app, is amazing. So let's move forward and see how does this library actually work. So we'll be looking at a couple of things here. How can you implement this library in your own projects? First thing would be the Gradle dependency that you will have to include in your Gradle. And layouts, I think this is the best way to start looking at any implementation. If you're a novice, or even if you are a experienced professional, layouts give you an overall perspective of the app, how the app is going to look to the user. So we will be looking at the layouts, then the menu. The menu is also playing a vital role in this implementation. The values, different values that are present in the app. XML preferences, we are also going to remember the preferences that have been set by the user. The activities and classes involved, this is last but not the least, and I think we already know that this is not something which you can ignore. This is the most important part, but I wanted to go through all of these things first, before we start talking about activities and classes. So let's start with Gradle dependencies. Gradle dependencies, there are a lot of Gradle dependencies that we have utilized in this implementation. The one which you have to use or you must use is this one. You can of course find out the latest version which is up there uploaded by Michael Rapp, but this is what I found, and you can use this dependency. And other dependencies are based upon the kind of implementation that you're going to do for this library. So the kind of implementation that I have created, or rather which Michael Rapp has created for us to understand, requires all these dependencies, and I have put these dependencies in this list. Let me take you to my Android Studio and show you how these dependencies are looking up in my Gradle for module app. So here's the project. How is it looking inside my Android Studio? And let me take you build.gradle module app. And here's the list of dependencies that we have used. You have already seen the list in the slide which we were discussing. I just wanted you to get a feel of it. How does it really look like when we start doing things in Android Studio? So you just have to make sure, if you are starting with the Android, then you must remember, or I'm sure you already know, that you have to introduce these dependencies only in the module app and not in the project file, right? So do it in the module app only. Talking about the layouts that are required, the first layout is activity underscore main. This is the main layout that is being used by the launcher activity. Then we have an empty view. This is another layout which gets utilized in another layout, uh, which is activity underscore main. It is used in TabSwitcher and activity underscore main. When I show you these two things, you will understand. So let me first show you how it is being used. So let me go to my layouts, and this is activity underscore main. As you can see, we have a widget here which is known as TabSwitcher. Now this is something which is not Android provided. This is something which has been developed by the author himself, and you will be able to use it only if you include the dependencies in the Gradle, which we have already done, right? So this is what is required here, and then inside this we have a custom empty view, and this empty view layout is also required. It has to be provided to this widget TabSwitcher so that you can utilize TabSwitcher. Let me show you the empty view here. Empty view is nothing but a text view. So basically this text view is getting embedded inside activity underscore main, and we are using the activity underscore main to showcase all the tabs. So let us go back to our PPT now and see what else is there in layouts. We have tab underscore edit underscore text. So what these two layouts are doing here is that what we have done is in the implementation of this entire app. Let me take you to the working of the app to show you how these different layouts are getting used. So here's the working of the app. As you can see, whatever you can see is basically being hosted by main activity, the launcher activity, and the layout that is being used is activity underscore main. The activity underscore main, as we have already discussed, also makes use of empty view layout to show you the main activity. And if I were to click on the number 12 here, as you can see at the top, there's this small box and number 12 is mentioned there. If I were to click on that, then all the tabs start getting showing up, and I can click on the cross for tab 1, and tab 1 will get uh, it will get destroyed. So as you saw, the tab 1 got removed, and now you have tab 2 in front, which is having an edit text. So basically the edit text, tab edit text, and tab text view, two layouts that we have seen in our Android Studio, are two layouts that we are utilizing for these different tabs. Now I'm going to close the tab 2 also, and again tab 3 comes, which again has got text view, and then edit text, text view, edit text. So basically we have put these edit text and text view alternatively, right? Another thing which I want to discuss here is that if I were to click on the three dots for settings menu, then you can see that I'll get new tab and settings, right? And if I were to click on new tab, then a new tab appears. As you can see, the current number of tabs is 8, which is showing up in the top right corner. Now again I will add one more tab. Now it should be 9, right? So this animation and all is all automatic. We will see how to make this animation happen. Now if let's take a case wherein we are right now, there's this tab which is open, and let me now try to click on the menu, three dots of the menu. Right now this is the scenario wherein I'm going to now click on the three dots for menu. When I click on that, then there are three options available to me through menu. One is new tab, then clear all tabs, and settings. If I were to click on new tab, again the new tab will appear, which was as it was expected. Now again what I will do is I will choose something else. If I were to click on settings, clear all tabs, the second option will definitely remove all the tabs, and there's nothing interesting about it. But if I were to click on settings, the settings opens up a new screen altogether, and we will be using a different activity for this. This screen has got a theme here, and if I click on theme, then there's a dialog which appears which asks me to choose one of these two themes. So right now the dark one is enabled. I'll click on light, and the moment I choose light, you can see that the entire theme has changed, right? So like I mentioned earlier, we are going to use preferences here, which basically help us remember what is the theme that the user has set. So that is about it. Now let us go back to Android Studio and resume our discussion. So let me show you now the layouts that are actually being used here. Tab edit text. It's a linear layout overall, and then there's a frame layout inside it. Then there's a text view, and there is this widget unfocusable toolbar, and then the edit text comes in. This is the edit text which is used here, and then there's another text view. This is very similar to the previous one. The only difference will be the text view, right? And at the end we have lorem ipsum. So these are the two layouts that are getting utilized in alternate tabs. And now the final layout which has been used is activity underscore settings, used for showing settings to the user. So settings to the user is here, and this is something which is basically a frame layout which has got a linear layout and then toolbar, and there's another widget. Again, this is something which has been developed by the author, and this is not something which Android based SDK has been providing. This is something developed by the author, and of course you can use it. And then we have a relative layout inside it. The settings, this is where this is something which we will use to show the settings to the user when they click on these settings, right? Talking about menus, there are two types of menu XMLs that we are using here. First one is tab.xml, and another one is tab underscore switcher.xml. Tab.xml is here. It has got three items inside it. New tab and settings are the two items which will be ultimately showing up to the user. And TabSwitcher has also got a couple of items. These are new tab, clear all tabs, and settings, right? Let me show you the screenshots which will help you understand why these two different menus are there. So this menu will show up when the user is using app like this. So if the user clicks on the settings or rather the menu button here at this point in time, then this menu will be used, tab.xml, right? And in case the user clicks on the menu at this point in time when all the tabs are showing up, then the second tab switcher will get activated and this will be used, right? So that's why you have two menus here being used. A lot of values are being used here: colors, attrs, attributes, dimensions, strings, and styles. I think it's better if we don't get into the details of these values as of now, because they will get utilized in any case, and we already have some idea why these values are used. So let's not get into the details for these right away. XML preferences are also being used. Like I said earlier, we will be using shared preferences concept here to remember that there is this preference that the user has chosen. And if you observed in our demo of this app on my mobile phone, we did talk about the theme that got changed from dark to light and light to dark. So for that we are using XML preferences, and XML preferences are managed here. So here is a file, XML preferences. This basically has a list preference tag inside it. So it allows you to, like, you just have to mention the list preference here, and the entire dialog appearing up. And of course the rest of the job has to be done in your main activity or the Java class that is going to handle the preferences. But this takes up the rest of the task of handling the preference UI, right? So this is how we are handling the preferences. Now comes the most important part, and that is discussing the activities and classes that are making all this magic happen. So let's dive into the activities and classes. Now here is a main activity, and before we start discussing main activity, let me show you the manifest ones. So manifest has got two activities inside it. One is main activity, which is the launcher activity, and the another one is settings activity, which is not the launcher activity. So these are two activities that are getting used, and we also have preference fragment here. So let's start discussing main activity. So main activity, like any activity, has got an onCreate method. It makes use of the layout activity underscore main, like we have already discussed. This is the layout that is getting used by main activity, and just to maintain the consistency, I will show you the activity underscore main. So this is how activity underscore main looks like. It has got a tab switcher inside it. This is a widget which has been developed by the author. and you cannot I mean, you can use it, of course, if you are using this library. uh, so what is really happening is that we have got a tab switcher object getting created here. We are like any widget, we are making an object of that widget, tab switcher, find view by id, r.id tab switcher. This id is coming from this tab switcher, which is an activity underscore main, right? And so basically we created an object of tab switcher, and then we are calling view compat dot set on apply window insets listener. So what exactly does this method do? So this is basically a method that is used to handle situations wherein you want some kind of margin to be there between the layout and the main screen that the user is using. Most of the times this concept is used for variables, that is Android variables, but you can utilize it in normal mobile phones also, which the author has done here. So what is really happening here is that like this is the a typical scenario. Like let's say you have a Android variable watch which is having this layout, and then the same layout, if you were to implement this layout in a round watch, then this kind of situation will happen, right? So the ideal scenario would be that if you were able to push this entire content inside by some by some margins during the runtime, so that there is nothing getting distorted in the overall layout, right? So, and this is what the entire concept of set on apply window inset listener is based upon, that you want to create dynamic layouts which can be given margins during runtime. We will see how you can do that later in the same video. But for now you can understand that we are setting a listener there, which will basically give us this will allow us to listen to this change happening on the mobile screen. So if you remember when I was showing you the demo, this same thing used to happen, whenever if you were to click on the this button here, this button, then this entire screen, this all the tabs actually get some margin from the from the left hand side and the right hand side and the top, right? So this is what is being done through the this entire library view compat, right? Dot set on apply window inset listener, and we have set the listener here, and we have provided the tab switcher object to it, and we have also called a method create window insets listener. We will see to this what exactly this method does later, but this is some returning something which we require here as an input argument, right? After that we are setting a decorator here. Decorator is another class that we have developed here, which decorates this entire piece that you see on the screen whenever the user changes the whenever the user clicks on the tab switcher. And whenever I will say tab switcher, I mean this, right? After that, this listener is added, and then show toolbars. You have to make all these as you have to provide these relevant input arguments here, and then we are running a for loop here, which is counting the number of tabs that are existing. Uh, this is something which we will be discussing very soon. Don't worry about this, but for now I can tell you that this is basically a for loop to count the number of tabs that we want when the app gets launched. And tab switcher, again, we call a method add tab on that, and provide it create tab I, right? All these methods we'll discuss very shortly. After that we have show add tab button, and then set toolbar navigation icon. We are providing a navigation icon here. This is the same box that you see here, it is getting provided here. And then we have create add tab listener. Again, this tab listener is added here to the navigation toolbar. And finally we are setting up the menu using this method setup with menu. This is a method which is again provided in the library, and you don't need to worry about these methods because these are already written by the author. And tab switcher and create tab switcher button listener, all the listeners are in place, and then you inflate the menu, right? Now let's have a look at this method, that is inflate menu. This was there, this was called at the last in the onCreate method. This is a method which is present inside main activity only. This method, what it does is it is basically calling in turn another method, inflate toolbar menu, which first of all counts the number of tabs that are present in a tab switcher right now. And if it is greater than 0, then the menu which is to be used is this one, that is tab switcher. And in case it is not greater than 0, or let's say it's 0, then this menu has to be used. And finally we are creating create toolbar menu listener. So please understand that this is not actually going to inflate the menu, it only is going to create the menu, and or rather decide the menu that needs to be listened to when the user clicks on one of the menu items, right? So in this inflate menu, we are basically deciding which menu has to be used whenever the user clicks on three dots that we see here, right? Now let us go to the start of this main activity now, because we've already seen what happens when on create is called. And now let us see what all else is there in main activity. There is this, it is extending like any typical activities. It extending app compact activity. It is implementing tab switcher listener. So this is another interface that the developer or the author has developed, and we are going to implement it. And then finally there is this class named as decorator. This is something which you have to write here. This is extending tab switcher decorator, another class that is provided by the developer author. And when on inflate view, this is a method which you need to override on inflate view. So whenever if the view type so what is this view type? Now before we go further, let's find out what this view type is. Well, if we go into the documentation, we get to know that the view type of the tab, it should be visualized as an integer value, right? So basically you can say that this is more like a serial number of the view that is getting generated, and we are trying to find out if view type is equal to 0, then we need to have a text view. And if the view type is not equal to 0, then we need to have an edit text. So we will see later that this is what creates an alternate text view and edit text as we create different views, right? Now we are right now inside the decorator class, and this toolbar is we are creating an object of toolbar here, view.find view by id r.id toolbar. Now right now we also have to find out where exactly is the toolbar id present. So regarding the toolbar, let me take you a little back and discuss what really happened in on create menu. So sorry, on create method. So when we were going through the on create method, if you remember, there was this set decorator and new decorator came up here. We created an instance of decorator class and provided it to the tab switcher as an input argument for setting the decorator, right? So what is really happening here is that this decorator instance is getting created, and then these methods get available to us. These methods like on inflate view, which are part of this class, abstract class tab switcher decorator. If I were to fetch you the information, this is in a public abstract class, which is an abstract class for all the decorators which are responsible for inflating views, which should be used to visualize the tabs of a tab switcher. Now this is on inflate view, the first method that it gets called whenever the tab switcher gets activated. And you have a toolbar here. This toolbar is actually the toolbar which, depending upon which view type is it the first 0 or 1. So if it is 0, then we will talk about the text view. And inside the text view, if you remember, there was this unfocusable toolbar, right? So this is the toolbar that we are referencing here inside the main activity. So we are inflating the menu here, r.menu.tab, because this is because this is this scenario wherein we have a text view. Whenever you will click on this three dots menu button, you will get the tab menu, and tab menu is here, which had only new tab and settings. If you remember, when I showed you the working, these three dots were working whenever you were on a tab and you were to click on three dots, you will only get two menu items, that was new tab and another one was settings. Now Talking about this part, set on menu item click listener. It's a simple menu on menu item click listener, which is being given create toolbar menu listener. Toolbar menu listener is passed on to this as an input argument, and then we are finally returning the view here. So this entire view is getting returned by on inflate view method. These different methods like on inflate view, on show tab, these methods will be called upon depending on the clicks that the user does and whenever the requirement is. So this is a get view type count, the return two, so you get two in return. So basically if there are two types of views that we are working here, right? We have a text view and an edit text. So there are the return get view type count is 2. If you want, you can increase this. Of course, the only thing you need to do is that you need to increase you also need to work on the extra layouts, that the types that you want to introduce in your app. And then there are these finals that we have used. The tab count is 12 here. This is the number of tabs that we had initially. And then there's this tab switcher that we are creating. Snack bar is also created whenever you will interact with these, or rather delete or add new tabs. These snack bars will be used to display these changes in the overall number of the tabs. As you can see here there is this private on apply windows in sets listener. This is basically a listener for applying window insets on a view in custom way. Apps may choose to implement this interface if they want to apply custom policy to the way that window insets are treated for a view. So this basically is going to handle how the things are going to show up once the user clicks on the this 12, this white button, right? So what is really happening here is that we are basically finding out the how are you going to show the tabs, how are they going to show up when the user clicks on this button, and the margins and all. As you can see, we are deciding the display width, and then we are also dealing with drag gestures. I think I did not show you the working of it in my mobile phone, but if you remember, if when we discussed it in the GitHub, we saw that you can also use draggables here. So the drag feature is also added here. And then we have whenever there is this create add tab listener, so whenever there is this new tab which is getting added, then we are animating the this appearance of the new tab with the create reveal animation. This is another method which is available here. It is being called a couple of times. Create reveal animation is here. This is a method which returns an animation object, and you're basically the way it is presented to the user when the new tab gets created. If you remember, there was some sort of animation that was happening. It is happening because of this. So this is how the main activity is performing different actions. The animation part and decorating part is all there in the main activity. Then we have another activity, settings activity, that comes into play once the user clicks on the one of the menu items. There is this menu. Whenever the user clicks on one of the menu items, the intent is getting fired, which takes the user to the settings activity. The settings activity is taking care of the entire the settings that need to be shown up to the user, as in wherein the user can decide if they want to have a dark theme or light theme. Here again, couple of methods are there. Set theme is trying to figure out if theme is not equal to 0. So basically you can have default value as 0, and there's this theme preference key. We are using shared preferences here. In case you guys don't have any idea about shared preferences, do let me know. I'll make a video of it. But it's if you are handy with Android, you already know. We are finding out the current set theme, and we're setting it in these two cases. And then there's this on create. We are using fragments here. The fragments are calling the transactions using begin transaction, and then replacing the fragment with the fragment that we basically using the preference fragment, we found out which is uh, this preference fragment is taking care of all the all the tabs that are to be shown to the user. I'll take you to the preference fragment here. Preference fragment is extending preference fragment. This is one of the classes that recently got introduced, which is shows a hierarchy of preference objects as lists. So you can use this preference fragment to deal with shared preferences. It has got its own methods. You can use these, and it has on create, and then you add preferences from resources, a very typical scenario wherein you call where you make use of one of the XMLs. Here we have already discussed this, and this basically takes care of the shared preferences part, taking care of all the preferences that the user might have. So I think we've pretty much covered everything here. Values is not something which is very, to be talked about. Once you start developing your own version of this app, you will understand value much better. So just to recap everything, if you want to create your own version, you can definitely download this entire library from the GitHub link that I showed you in the beginning of the video. And in case you want the code for this app that you are seeing right now, do let me know. You can mail us and contact us. Leave in the comments. We will definitely contact you through send a mail, send a link to this code here. And if possible, we can also upload this link, right? So that's it. This was the library Chrome like TabSwitcher. Do let us know if you have any doubts. You can definitely contact the author of this library. A pretty cool and awesome library that the author has made. Thank you so much for watching the video. Now subscribe to the channel and share this with your developer friends. Take care. Bye bye.